How do you think the demands of being a charity trustee have changed over the last 10 years?
I think the charity sector has changed over the last 10 years so that people are less frightened of saying that we should be business-like. Charities don't have to be businesses, but they should be business-like, and there is a push to be a little bit more professional. There's a push to improve governance. We've seen numbers of boards change so that the very, very large boards that we had in the past, where you might have had 250 trustees, this is not an effective board, just to be quite clear, coming down into an average size of 12 to 14, I think is a kind of big changes we've seen around governance, around impact reporting, and I think doing a proper job. If you're one of 250 trustees, you can't be accountable and responsible in the way that you would expect a trustee to be. I'm sure there's lots of other things as well in there.
Well, yeah, I would pick up the point you were making about impact reporting and the need to demonstrate effectiveness, because I think that's more important now than it ever has been, particularly in the current economic climate, where money is short and you're having to demonstrate exactly what you're doing, and I think that's impacted upon how trustees operate. I also think the changing nature of funding and the changing nature of public service provision, so grants and contracts, the differences between the two has put different calls upon trustees. The phrase that I used earlier when we were talking before we started was supportive scrutiny, and I think that would demonstrate, or that would sum up how trustees now are expected to scrutinise, but to be supportive in delivering the aims and objectives of the organisation.
I think it's really interesting because my feeling is that for people who want to do a good job as a trustee, it's a much better time to be a trustee, because there is an expectation that you're going to do a proper job and that you're not just going to sit as a trustee for 30 or 40 years because you have a title, or because you're one of the
absolutely.
That there for lots of reasons, being a trustee, you're much more able to be more effective now than you were in the past.
Would you agree with me in saying, perhaps you see this more at CAS, that there's starting to be a trend of people taking on trusteeships for what it gives them in terms of their own skill enhancement and their CV improvements? So they're coming in with that sort of, it's a key part of their career development, not just as part of their...
That's a really interesting point, because I think in the past there were people who went onto boards just so that they could put it on, I am also trustee of blah, rather than because they actively wanted to get involved in the organisation or to improve their skills. But I think people do recognise now that not only are you giving, but you're also gaining in the work that you're doing as a trustee, and there's a lot that you're learning in working in the charity sector, rather than just sitting there kind of giving back the kind of words of wisdom from your 30 years in industry or whatever.